Hey everybody, what's up? My name is James, and if you're watching this, you probably follow PLSATIC SCANDAL, which is my little side hustle selling primarily rare Japanese punk and hardcore records, but other weird, interesting things I find in between. And if you're not following that and you're here because, I don't know, the YouTube algorithm seems to think that you like seeing complete strangers talk about interesting records, you are in the right place. But let me just take a moment to tell you about what I do, because everything is for sale. I have a running sell list that you can find here at tinyurl.com/plasticscandal, where I do updates generally every other month. And starting about a week before each update drops, I start posting photos and detailed descriptions of every item here at my Instagram account at @plasticscandal with an underscore. When I do an update, all the items become available at once, and so do the prices. I usually don't do pricing ahead of time just because I'm often figuring things out until the last minute. But if you have any questions or want to make an offer on anything, feel free to hit me up. I try not to be super strict or an asshole about it. Now, when I do an update, usually it's maybe like 20 items at a time, but I've got a really, really big one coming up, about 60 items, and I thought that this would be a great opportunity to make a video. Usually I don't do videos about my sale list updates, but I'm like a burgeoning wannabe YouTuber and a bit inspired by my friend Mike Foster over at Analog Attack, who runs a great channel where he talks about interesting music, a lot of Japanese hardcore and punk, but a lot of other things he listens to in between. He's got diverse tastes, and he also does a podcast called What Are You Listening To?, where guests come on and talk about what they're listening to. And I go on that sometimes and really enjoy talking about records. And so I thought, hey, here's a good opportunity to talk and show off cool things that I have coming up. Now, if you're watching this on the day that I upload it, it is January 4th, Sunday, 2026. The Christmas tree is still up here at Plastic Scandal HQ, and the next update is going to happen a week from tomorrow, January 12th, a Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're watching this after January 12th, chances are that very little to nothing is still available in this video. Sorry. But if you're watching it beforehand, then there's still time to see Bank Officer for Loan, especially for this first record that we're going to get to, because we've got 59 items to talk about here, which means the video is going to be well more than an hour long. So let's just get right to it. We're starting off with a certified torpedo bonzer that I think calls for the white glove treatment. Nice. So from 1982, it's one of the most elusive and expensive Japanese hardcore punk EPs of all time. That's right. Gas No More Hiroshima. Record that I've gotten requests for since I started doing these sales. This is the first copy that I've been able to run across, and it's about as good as you could ask for. Pretty much pristine. If I were to point out one flaw, really, it's that, and I don't even know if it'll show up on camera, there's like a tiny little bit of, like maybe there's like a sticker here at one point that is now off, that I guess kind of like provides a little bit of rough area on the cover here. But otherwise, you know, no significant creases. This is if you've ever held one of these, the cover is just tissue thin, which is why we're doing the white gloves right now. It does include the insert, and the red vinyl flexi itself is just pristine, about as nice a copy as anyone could ever ask for. And yeah, just a very, very, very sick record. And now that that's out of the way, and the record that costs more than my monthly rent is out of the way, I'm going to put a beer on the table. Cheers. So, the famous singer from Gas, of course, is Narumi, but she came later after the first two EPs. The original singer is Kyohi. After Gas, he went on to sing in this band, Jiga, who released just this record and tracks on the Jisatsu Omnibus Suicide label, which was Gas's label. And they also put out this one release by this band. Pretty much all killer, no filler on the Jisatsu label, and this EP is no exception. Near mint vinyl, does include the insert. I rated the cover VG+, but it's really probably near mint, but who knows what's going on in my head when I do grading. Kind of all depends on how stoned I am, probably. Anyways, keeping things moving. Next up, we have something that I thought I would have in the sale a lot earlier, but it took a while to find a copy. It is the famous Punks compilation that was a cassette-only affair. It was a collaborative effort by the people at Shura Zine, which is a very influential punk zine in Japan in the mid-'80s that I've had copies of for sale here on the sale, and I have another one coming here on this update. And then also down here, that's Treasure Island. Treasure Island was sort of like a slightly more mainstream alternative music magazine. And this thing is a pretty indispensable comp. For some reason, never re-released properly, but often bootlegged. But the one thing that the several bootlegs that are out there have never really reproduced is the booklet, which is by far the most important aspect of this release, because it was laid out and designed by none other than Sakevi with a very unmistakable style. This is going to be like hard figuring out how to do the booklet, but a very unmistakable layout style that is clearly just has him all over it, literally and figuratively. And the best part of it is towards the beginning of the booklet, you just have these full color photos that are absolutely indispensable. Just cool shit all the way through. And it would just be so expensive to reproduce this booklet. I don't think anyone's ever going to do it unless, I don't know. I don't see how a repress of this could possibly make money, especially if you're doing it properly. I want to talk about this. The sleeve for it as well is until I actually held one of these myself, I always thought it was like paper or cardboard, but it's actually this like molded plastic. It's just an insane release. The fact that it exists seems completely ludicrous. The tape is in fantastic shape. I have play graded it. Sounds great. What more do you want? Willard, Lip Cream, Cobra, Laughin' Nose, Gas, Gizm. Another fantastic Japanese punk compilation. Okay, up next I have a record by a group that forever I thought was just pronounced OXZ. Turns out it's actually OXZ. They released this one 8-inch EP, and then another 12-inch after that. I would describe it as sort of like minimal post-punk art rock. It's still like definitely like punk. It's not like indie rock, and I don't know, like very kind of minimal, a bit ramshackle and lo-fi. It's a very cool, unique record. I can't really think of much else that quite sounds like it, but just an interesting record, self-released, doesn't come up too often, from 1984, the OXZ 8-inch. Next up is a copy of probably the thing I have sold the most here at Plastic Scandal, which I love. It's the second Comes LP, Power Never Die, a record that I put off listening to for years and years because everybody told me, oh, it's not as good as No Side, it's a metal record, it sucks, you don't want it. And finally, when I heard it, I kind of like fell in love with it immediately. No, it's not a hardcore blazing thrash record like No Side, but it is still a hardcore record. It's still definitively punk. It's metal influenced, but it's just got a lot of personality. Chitose's vocals are much different, but still really good. I don't know. It seems like public opinion has turned on this record, though, now, and everybody likes it all of a sudden and is looking for copies. I've sold probably about 10 of them since starting this sale. This one is going to be a little cheaper than the others because, unfortunately, it doesn't have the insert. But otherwise, near mint vinyl, VG Plus cover. It's really a near mint cover, but I say VG Plus because it doesn't include the insert. I don't really think you could say that a record is near mint cover-wise if it's missing an insert or something, or OB strip or whatever. That's just my personal opinion. But the cover that exists there is pretty much flawless. Moving on, we have an EP that was one of the first Japanese punk EPs I ever heard as a teenager in the 90s. Warhead, Cry of Truth. They are one of the longest running bands, still incredibly active. When I was in Japan in 2024, over the course of a couple months, I saw them like 3 times. They are constantly playing. They're sort of like the house band in Osaka. Far and away, one of the best live bands I've ever seen in my life. Actually, if I'm putting together like a list of like the top 3 live sets I've ever seen, it was one of them is when they came to Chaos and Teos down in Austin, Texas. And not the normal fest gig, but the house party that they played, and didn't go on until like 5 a.m. and everyone was like fucking stoned and drunk out of their gourd. And the singer June, who's just a madman, looked like he was done for the night. Everyone thought the show was not going to happen. But man, when it was their time to play, someone flipped a switch and they really just wrecked it. Just one of the noisiest, most chaotic things I've ever seen in my life. Absolutely crushing live set. I'll never forget it. And this is the very, very first original press of Cry of Truth that is self-released. Later on, it came out on Devour, I think, and then there's a German press of it, and then a later Japanese press. But this is the real original first self-released version from, I believe, 1991. They were like teenagers when they made this record. It does include the insert and the original factory inner sleeve. This is like a VG Plus copy of just an essential Japanese hardcore EP. Come and get it. All right, up next, let's do a zine. Here's like not really strictly a punk zine as the name would imply. This is Indies, a not particularly long-running zine that came out. This particular issue is obviously number 5 from March 1986. And this one has a little bit of punk bona fides in Laughin' Nose and Gas Stunk. You also get Zolga here, the very underrated Dogma band, and photos of Zelda on the inside. Pretty cool format, I would say. Small, readable. This thing is, there's Zolga for you. Zolga or Zolj, I don't know. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Here's the thing that's going to come up often is that, I don't speak Japanese very well, and I'm not very smart. In fact, I don't speak Japanese at all, and I'm not very smart. So I'm going to mispronounce quite a lot. But hey, sound off and correct me in the comments. That will help my engagement. I love Laughin' Nose. Laughin' Nose is just one of the greatest bands ever. Anyways, very cool zine. These things don't come up too often. And it's pretty much almost mint. The binding is good to go on it. No particular tears, creases, or anything. I don't know. Just a sick magazine from back in 1986, issue number 5. You also have Gas Stunk is in here, and the aforementioned Ox Zed, I think, has a little feature in here as well. So, cool little zine. Pick it up. I should have decided where I'm going to be putting this stuff after I'm done talking about it. I'm just kind of starting a pile over here next to me, but yeah, what can you do? Anyways, I did mention how much I love Laughin' Nose, and recently I got a rare version of the second Laughin' Nose record that includes not this one. It includes this printed PVC cover. Kind of hard to find, but that replaces my personal copy because I, of course, need to keep the rare one. But this is just a masterpiece Japanese pop punk LP, excuse me, that, I don't know, anyone who loves Japanese punk needs to own Laughin' Nose records, at least the first 2 LPs. This record is definitely sort of more of a turn towards like a commercial sound and quite like a little bit radio friendly, accessible. This was their sort of a bit at like a more commercial identity, which like eventually they signed to like VAP and were kind of an indie darling band in Japan. But every song on this is just fantastic. It's an excellent record. It does include the Obi, but this is not, I think I graded this one a VG on the cover because it does have a seam split at the top, but it's just a good player copy. It's going to be cheap. It's just, I want to move it onto the right home now that I have a different player copy for myself. So moving this one along. If you don't own it already, you need to hit me up and pick it up. After Laughin' Nose, let's talk about a band that I think is really goddamn cool. If you are into the Kyushu noise sound of the mid-'80s, there was a band that is extremely obscure called Donkeys that came from that scene in that time that later kind of reformed under the name Chaos CH or Chaos Channel. who came back around in the mid-90s and did a couple of EPs. This one is my favorite of the two. And to, I'm trying to like talk about these in an order where like there's some sort of like connection from one thing to another. And the connection here to Laugh-In Nose is that this EP was produced by Pon, the longtime bassist of Laugh-In Nose, and the just a cool fucking guy who did a fantastic job producing this record. It's just completely noisy, unhinged, insane, classic Japanese noisecore from 1995, Overthrow Records. And I do gotta say that, sadly, the singer of this band just passed away. Vocalist Motomu, I think was his name, passed away actually last year, I think, while I was in Japan. The news happened. Very sad. But great band who produced or released this EP in 1995, and then came back around a few years later, quite a few years later, in 2010, and did what I think is next to Swanky's Very Best of Hero, maybe equal to Swanky's Very Best of Hero, the greatest Japanese noisecore full length in How Do You Never Been So High, Though You'd Never Needed to Be. That's the name of the record. Clearly, I'm having to look on my screen of notes to remember how long it is. But it was originally a CD-only release. It did eventually get pressed on vinyl, but the original CD-only version is completely insane. Very tough to find. I've never seen it in the US. Comes in this ridiculous box, which we can slide it off. Take a look at the inserts. It has 3 poster inserts. Get it the right way around. This one is like, band live photo plus lyric insert, and then this other just kind of like art poster insert situation. Which way am I holding it? Yes, those are boobs. Please don't report me. And then whatever that means, I don't know, hang it on your wall or don't. And then, 2 inserts is not enough. We need one more, very tissue paper thin, another lyric insert. Now I'm realizing if this is a lyric insert, what's the other one? Maybe that's not lyrics. Maybe I need to look at it a little bit closer. And the CD itself. Just very interesting how they took this sound that was extremely discordant and noisy and did, they kind of like elevated it to a level of artistry, as you can tell by the layout. It's very like graphic designy, very kind of like arty in presentation, but not in music. It's still just completely inept, abrasive, noisy Japanese punk rock. I'm gonna do a little cut here so I can put this shit all back in the box. Okay, now Chaos Channel is back in its home. We were just talking about Kyushu. What's your favorite band, Kyushu? Here's mine, probably my favorite Japanese punk group of all time. It's the Kuro Who the Helpless 8-inch, just an absolute classic. One of the just marquee Japanese punk records. Everyone needs it. I think it's funny that like Kuro, for being like one of the just like punkest bands ever, they also kind of like employed a sort of like minimalist, arty, graphic designy kind of aesthetic on a lot of their releases, which, whether or not there is a direct inspiration there between Chaos Channel and Kuro, I don't know, maybe not, probably not. Kuro's not really, they're not like Confused or Swankies in that they're like a noisy band, though they're loud, they're distorted, but they kind of took their cues obviously more from like Motorhead and Discharge. I've had copies of this before. Happy to have it again on the sale. Everyone always wants it. No Japanese hardcore collection is complete without it. Kuro, Who the Helpless. Hey, earlier I was talking about Shura Zine. I've had issues number 1, 2, 6, and 9 on the sale in the past. I think I might still have 6 and 9 for sale, but I've never had this one. It's issue number 4, and what's the connection? That's right, if you recognize these guys right here. Fantastic interview with the gods themselves, Kuro, in this issue. I just like, they call it Japs Wave magazine. It's just indispensable. I love, it's like the 4th time I've said something is indispensable, but it's Japanese hardcore. Who are we kidding? It's all indispensable. I love the layout of this zine. I've been scanning these as I get them to do translations through Google Translate and make them available in PDF form. Eventually, I've been lazy about this, but eventually I'm going to make a little area on the sell list where you can just download all of the stuff that I've made translations of. And I'm going to get this one scanned and translated. Probably not in time for the sale drop, but who knows, maybe. We will see. We will see. Anyhow, issue number 4 of Shura. Got to have it. Well, you don't have to have it. No one has to have it, but it's nice to have. It's nice to have issues of Shura. We like to have nice things. Up next is a band that I am really sweating attempting to pronounce, so forgive me, but Shoujo Ningo, I don't know. The name translates to girl doll, and I have all 3 of their EPs. They only released these 3 records, and they're all like pretty fantastic. They, how do I describe them? They're definitely like, this is something like the more like hardcore punk of the 3, but they're all sort of like gothy, but like crazed and weird topic wise. They're like, if you read the lyrics, they're very like negative, and so you might like see from like the artwork that it's like kind of like sexually depraved, and deals with like themes of like, you know, like S&M and bondage, I guess, is what I'm guessing from some of this. But anyways, these records, all 3 of them, are really, really, really just cool, good records that don't pop up here in the U.S. This one probably being the most well-known, but you know, the 3rd one might be my favorite. I don't know. It's a toss-up. Also, some of like the best vocals of all Japanese punk bands. The guy's name was Peppy or Peepy, and yeah, I don't know. He could belt them out. Really good stuff. Also, I want to warn you that the insert on this record is grotesquely inappropriate and something that I probably shouldn't even be selling or sending through the mail. But if you know, you know. And personally, I would rather just not know. But I not only know, but I'm selling it, which makes me hopefully not legally responsible. Who knows? One of the best bands from the late 90s, early 2000s to come out of Japan, I think, was Order. I loved their like UK 82 influenced pogo hardcore sound. Their LP Teppodong is just a fucking masterpiece through and through. And here's a t-shirt from that era. I would say probably 2002, 2003 or so. I know it's like a Teppodong shirt because it has the big missile on the side. This is a small, so it's probably not going to fit on a lot of you, but you know, to be honest, old rare vintage shirts I rarely wear to begin with. They're kind of just something to collect, but I do like that Order shirt, but not as much, my God, as this one. Check this out. Whether or not you think this is ugly or a work of art, it's not up for debate. It's a work of art. Order just like put out some of the coolest, craziest shirts I've ever seen. A friend of mine had this one that had like ants crawling over it. You might notice that like the Teppodong shirt also had like ants crawling over it. It seems like a theme of their designs, but this is just like all over silkscreen print, neon green ink, and then like a slightly darker ink for the band logo. This one is also a small. Believe me, if I could fit inside this thing, I would be keeping it. I would slit your throat in a heartbeat for one that fit me, so don't test me. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so up next I have a band that I don't really know how to connect to Order other than when you think about great Japanese punk bands that start with the letter O, what else you got? That's right, Uto, and their sole LP that translates to something like honest people are fools, or see fools, or get tricked or something. I don't quite understand how to translate this, but anyways, Uto is a band that like when I first got into Japanese hardcore I thought was like one of the big marquee bands, and they are, but in the US I just don't see people talking about them as much. these days. But to me, they're a band that like arguably just got better and better with every release. I like their early Disorders. I don't know. It depends what day you catch me on. Sometimes I like their early stuff more slightly, and then other days I throw on this LP and I'm just blown away. Just fantastic record. Also one of the coolest looking records you could possibly imagine. Their resident artist, of course, was the great Tom. Probably my favorite of the Japanese resident punk artist. Her work is just so cool. I got to see a retrospective of her work at a gallery in Koenji when I was last in Japan. And when you see the stuff like up close and in person, the level of detail is just mind-blowing. Anyway, so just I haven't had a copy of this in a while. Near mint vinyl, VG Plus on the sleeve. One thing I like about Japanese hardcore bands of that era is how certain bands had like their resident artists that did all of their flyers and release artwork. Obviously, Uto had Tom, SOB had Kazuhiro, and this band had Sugi-chan. And that's right, we're talking about Rose Rose, who these are their 2 EPs on Dogma Records. One with the greatest title of all time, Born to be a Skate Boy, and Skatehead 88. 2 very, very bizarre records that, you know, like I used to think like this era of Rose Rose was not great. I'm kind of like slowly coming around to it, but the first EP and Emotional Disturbance, I think, are kind of masterpieces. I tend to gravitate more towards like more metallic hardcore of that era, and this is like kind of like taking a turn towards like kind of bandana thrash, but like not strictly. These EPs are like throwing everything at the wall and just seeing what sticks. Like every song and sometimes different parts of the same song, just like constantly change styles. Very, very unusual, unique records. And I was dismissive of them for a while, but my aforementioned friend Mike over at Analog Attack kept telling me that I had to give another shot to this record, Kill Your Brain, where he described it as lightning in a bottle. And, you know, I gotta say, he's right. Yeah, there's something on this record where it does finally just kind of all come together. This is a heavy one. I don't like blast beats usually, but this one just it's not. I don't know. It still has like enough like thrash to make it more than like a grind record, but like it still like has like elements of both. Just a killer 12-inch EP that is also on the Dogma label. So Rose Rose, Kill Your Brain. I would say probably the high point for that era of Rose Rose. I still don't know if I probably don't like it as much as Emotional Disturbance, but thank you, Mike, for changing my opinion somewhat on Rose Rose. Okay, so let's talk about another cassette. Here's a really interesting one. One of the most elusive Japanese punk records, of course, is the infamous Typhus Flexi. But even harder to find, but I think just as good, is this right here. It's called Live Take. It is a live recording, but if you've heard the Typhus Flexi, you know, like it's pretty lo-fi, and sonically there's like not that much difference between this live recording and the studio recording on the Flexi. It's just a really cool release. Mid 80s-ish. I don't exactly like. I would guess like 1983-ish. These actually came out after Typhus broke up, and Tam just kind of dubbed these cassettes of recordings that he had hanging around. It's on a Sony AHF 46 cassette, a pretty typical blank cassette from that era in Japan. I will say that it's pretty much like VG Plus to near mint, except as you can see, there's like a little bit of peeling on the label there. So a little like bump right here. So I'm going to give the cassette itself a VG Plus, even though it sounds fine. And it does include this insert with lyrics and band photos, I'm assuming, I guess. That's what that is. I don't know who those people are. Maybe it's the band. I don't know. I'm having trouble getting the insert into the tape, so I'm going to do another cut here. Ah, just like that. Movie magic. The genie is back in the bottle. But that was the Typhus live tape cassette. Really a fantastic, really, really cool release. And another tape release I talked about earlier, the Punks compilation cassette, was, I mentioned, co-released and co-produced by a kind of mainstreamish magazine called Treasure Island. A few months ago, I sold Treasure Island #1, and now I've got Treasure Island #9, featuring Mr. John Lydon on the cover here, from September 1983. And the real highlight here is this Gizm live show interview with some very dispensable, fantastic photos of the gig. Primarily, though, do you see this guy standing behind Sock Heavy with the chain around his hand? I don't know who that is. I just think that's sick as hell. Let's bring back bringing chains into the pit at shows. Just why not? Just wrap a chain around your hand and walk around with it. It's threatening, it's frightening, it's cool, it's a good look. In addition to those photos, there's a pretty interesting Machiro Indo from the Stalin conversation with an author that I'm not familiar with. I'm going to butcher his name, so I apologize. Genichiro Takahashi, I think is his name. He was a novelist that is still alive and was, I guess, kind of like focused on like subculture at the time. And yeah, put out that pretty interesting interview in issue #9 of Treasure Island. There's also, of course, a very good John Lydon interview if you are a Public Image Limited fan. I know I am. Okay, up next we have, let's just do like a run of like punk records that I really enjoy. And one of my favorite Japanese punk record is by a band that doesn't get enough love here in the US, but I swear to God, this EP, it's a top 5, maybe even top 3 Japanese punk EP, a record that is severely overlooked, and I beg you to pick this up. It's Dead Janky Girl by the Aggressive Dogs. Now, Aggressive Dogs, I think, like kind of like a maligned reputation in the U.S. because towards the late 80s, early 90s, they changed their style to be a bit more of New York hardcore influenced. And I guess like when an American looks for Japanese hardcore, they don't want it to sound like American hardcore. They want it to sound like Japanese hardcore. And so a lot of people think Aggressive Dogs is like a New York hardcore influenced band, which they are now. But their first EP here from 1985 on KPP Records is just, I don't know what to tell you. Like the song Dead Janky Girl, it alone is a masterpiece. But the whole EP, just beginning to end, absolutely blazing Japanese punk rock. And their second EP that came out a little later was on the More Records label that is famous for releasing State Children and A.T. Debt. And it basically is like a perfect label that's like highly collectible. But I don't think that EP is as good as this one. This is just, I'm not trying to like move a record onto you just for the sake of selling a record. Take my word for it. This is top tier shit right here. Another record that's probably not top tier shit, but pretty good, and a band that, similar to Aggressive Dogs, just doesn't seem to have a lot of love here in the US, is Fuck G's or Fuck Gees. I always thought Fuck G's because that sounds funner to say, but maybe it's Fuck Gees. I don't know. But this is their very first EP, a Flexi from 1983 on MCR. Now, it's funny because like I think of like MC, for one, I think of Fuck Gees or Fuck G's, Fuck Gees, I don't know. I think of them as like the MCR band. Like the two bands that come to mind when I think of MCR are these guys and SDS, of course, but especially these guys who were just around forever. And I remember in the 90s, it seemed like there was always a new Fuck Gees release on MCR. I didn't realize, though, that MCR and Fuck Gees have been around as long as they have. This EP is from 1983. So, I don't know. It's just straight ramshackle, pogo, punk rock. It's quite good. If you think you've heard this band and didn't care for it, give this one a chance. It's on YouTube. Give it a spin. See what you think. You might like it more than you expect. And then here's another one that is an extremely just unknown band called Doku Buta. Probably not pronouncing that correctly. The name translates to Poison Pigs. And they, as far as I know, only put out this one single, Go Go People, also a flexi. Believe that this one, just trying to take a look, 1985. So mid-80s, Japanese punker. You know, it's not going to knock your socks off, but it's a pretty solid EP. I would say it's like, it's part of why this band is probably overlooked is it was 85 and most of the bands were going towards a more hardcore sound. And this sounds a bit more like the Stalin or like an 80K kind of punk sound. I think it's quite good, but just like one of those records that got lost in the fray and people don't really know. I only heard it for the first time within the last year and shortly after that copy popped up, and I wanted to pick it up, give it a spin, and then move it on to its new home. Hey, I mentioned the Stalin just a second ago. Let's look at another zine. Let's look at Michiru Endo's, his zine, Ingo, or Injo? I don't know. Again, tell me I'm wrong in the comments. How do I say this? Ingo, Ing-O, exclamation point. I don't know. But this is issue number 4. They only did 5 issues total. And this one is specifically focused on the Stalin, which I mentioned earlier. Michiru was the editor of the magazine. So talk about preferential coverage. Seems a bit nepotistic if you ask me. Look at that photo. Fantastic. Good stuff. Just lots of conversations with the man himself in here. Great band photos. These magazines each came with a flexi. And the one that came with this one was a repress of the first Stalin EP. But this copy does not have the flexi. Usually, one time I've seen a flexi paired with an original issue of this, but usually the flexis and the issues themselves have been separated. So this one doesn't have the flexi, but it's still just a damn cool relic of a time, and also just like huge. Just like really like most of these zines, like I mentioned before, they're a bit smaller size comparison. Or Treasure Island from a second ago is like a much smaller thing. But this thing is just big and floppy, the way we like our zines, and maybe other things. Let's not talk about it. If you love the Stalin and you want to see like 50 pictures of the band and Michiru Endo in a relatively short zine, well, then that's for you. Hey, does anybody out there like gauze? Probably, right? We all love gauze. And we all covet having a cool, original, official gauze t-shirt. Not very many of them made it here. And I used to always think it was like the sickest thing when like someone is like very braggadociously wearing an original gauze shirt, because it means they probably went to Japan and picked it up at a gig. But those days are over. Gauze have hung it up, and your chance of getting an original gauze shirt at a gig are long gone. But I picked up 3 for resale here at PLSATIC SCANDAL, and they are all in big, fat, American-friendly sizes. So let's take a look at some cool gauze shirts. Here is a size medium of this pretty sick black on black logo design. I don't know how well that picks up on camera, but it does have a like very minimal back print in red. I'm guessing all of these shirts are early to mid 2000s. This one is, they're all free of holes or stains. This one has been worn. I would say it's VG plus shape. I don't really know how to like grade t-shirts. I'm not usually a t-shirt dealer, but it's in good shape. The material is slightly faded from washing, but it's a solid wear. Also, on all of the shirts I'm offering, I am going to include length and chest sizes. So if you're not sure, you can measure yourself, figure out what kind of shirts you like to wear and what fit you, and make a judgment call from there as to whether or not you could pick any of these up. The second gauze shirt I have is in fat ass American extra large. It's from this run that they were doing where they had a few designs. They had these like sort of like essay manifesto style screeds on them, and then on the back of this one is just like massive gauze logo. This one is a bit better shape, I think, than the one I just showed. In fact, it might be unworn. just judging from the tag, it doesn't look like it's been washed. If it has, maybe once or twice. I do want to say that you can't really tell on camera, but it's the print is not white. It's sort of like a cream yellow in a way. But cool shirt. And then finally I got one more. One that, man, I'm kind of tempted to keep. But I'm kind of like a Fairweather Gauze fan. Like they are the undisputed kings of Japanese hardcore. They're just not my personal favorite Japanese hardcore band. So I maybe wouldn't feel right to keep this for myself. I want to move it on to someone who will love it properly. But this design is so cool. It's another one of these kind of like manifesto designs about the difference between speed and attitude. And it's got this like great like chest print, and then the manifesto again on the back, and this sort of like fractured, deconstructed, psychedelic print. Pretty cool. This one is a size large. So we've got like a medium, a large, and an extra large of original Gauze shirts to fit our fat, disgusting American bodies. Back in like the early 2000s, I had a friend that went to Japan and got to see Gauze play, and I was jealous enough of that. But then, I was rolling a joint, and I was like, does anyone have a lighter? And he whipped out one of these. How about that? A Gauze lighter, official, printed on both sides. As you can see, this one is well loved and worn. The printing is a little bit scuffed on it, and no more fluid. The flint still works. But if I were you, I would suggest picking this up and just keeping it on you at all times. So when your mate asks for a light for his cig, you can whip it out and pretend that you thought it had fluid in it. And then you have a nice conversation piece and reason to gloat. We were talking a little bit earlier about the Kyushu noise sound and the Swankies. Here's one that I haven't had on the sale yet. It's very best of volume 2. For some reason now the Swankies are the refined white cats. What does that mean? I don't know. But pretty solid EP. I would say like this is sort of like the turning point when they started to go towards like a more 77 sound that was less blown out and noisy, but still just snotty as hell. Fantastic pogo punk. But let's go back to the roots. Let's go back to the pre-Swankies band. You already know who I'm talking about. It's Guy, Extermination EP. This is God tier level shit. This is a record I get often on the sale. I will pick it up and resell it any opportunity I get. There's a strong argument to be made that this is the best Japanese punk single. It is a flexi, but I don't know how. These like Japanese flexis like sound fantastic, and this is like the best one, man. This record sounds so huge, despite being on flimsy plastic and just noisy, but not a lo-fi recording. It's just fantastically well-produced shit. I love this record so much, and am more than happy just to move copy after copy and put them all to good homes. Up next is a record that I had right at the very beginning when my very first drop included one of these that I brought back from Japan with me. A record that is painfully obscure and quite expensive. It is the Sex, Imagination, Drugs 1981 EP. It's a flexi on the great Incest Records that was run by Paro, again, correct me in the comments. He was in Shaw London, the like cult Japanese punk hardcore band Shaw London, and also another group that came later called Hentai Club. But this record is killer. I mean, if you are into first wave Japanese punk rock in the vein of like, I guess maybe like the first Fraction EP, but this is like just something else. It's faster, it's harder, it's sort of like the SS, but better recorded. It's live like the SS record, but better recorded, a lot better recorded, but fast, just fast, crazy punk rock, but still it's like hooks. It's quite catchy. I love this record. Now, the last copy I sold about a year ago, I sold for a little bit more than $800. But I'll tell you, I got a really, really good deal on this one, and I'm gonna pass the savings on to you, the customer, and price this one a bit lower, just because I want to put it to a good home. This is a really, really, really cool record. If you haven't heard it before, YouTube it. You'll see what I mean. It's good shit. Okay, moving on. What's next? Oh, this one I got to do a cut because I have to open it up a little bit. Hold on one second. Okay, so another record that, you know, I thought that no one in the US would know or be interested in, but instead I have sold a bunch of copies of it and get requests for it all the time, is the fantastic LP Rebel Point by the all-female hardcore band Kaya. And this copy is, I said this last time I had one of these, I'm like, oh, this is like the best copy I've had, but maybe this is the best copy I've had. For one, several of these are sort of like promo copies that are signed by the band. I don't know if you can like tell like quite clearly, but it's sort of signed in this like pink marker. Does include the Obi strip, mint LP, mint vinyl, but the thing that sets this one apart from the others, even more so than the signatures, is it comes with something I've never seen in another copy, and it's this sticker right here. Wait, there we go. This sticker right here, which is very similar to the stickers that came inside their EP Slapdash. Slapdash had this sort of die-cut sleeve, and you would like a little holder on the inside of the insert where you could like there's a different sticker that came with each one of them. But those are red stickers, and this is not a sticker from Slapdash, I don't think. This is just like a different promo sticker, I guess, that came with some copies of Rebel Point. I've never seen another one, but if you've not heard the Kaya records, they're all fantastic. The second EP, I'm really having a hard time trying to find. It hasn't come up yet. I want it for the sale, and I want it for myself. It's out there somewhere, but it's just a tough one to come by. No connection between Kaya and this next thing, but so we'll just move it on anyways. Hey, how about Burst Magazine? You like Burst Magazine? I like Burst Magazine. And here is a pretty infamous issue of Burst Magazine where the cover stars are none other than the Burning Spirits Torchbearers Tetsuare. I had one of these a few months ago. Sold quickly. Happy to get another one. I'm not going to open it up and like flip through the photos for you because this one just kind of like arrived like it arrived like with just well wrapped and taped up, and I don't want to rip it open. I want to keep it protected for you, the buyer. So, but just trust me, there's some very, very sick live photos in here, not just of Tetsuare, but you also get Judgment and Forward are in here. And yeah, I don't know. We love Tetsuare. We love Burning Spirits. And speaking of Burning Spirits, let's look at some flyers, shall we? Okay. Now, if you've ever seen any of the like original Burning Spirits flyers, they all have artwork by this dude that I think is so cool, and I'm intimidated as hell every time I see him. His name is Naka, and he was in Paintbox and a fantastic band in the 90s called Pinocchio, and is currently in No Problem, which is a band that has like released like a split CD, and that's it, in like a couple comp tracks and like 25 years of existing. But one of those bands where it's like, damn, all these guys are like burly, and they have those particular kind of tattoos, and just seem scary. But then they have mohawks and they play with their shirts off and wearing sandals. It's just like, it's a scene. It's a scene. But Naka he's like the resident Burning Spirits artist, and you've definitely seen his artwork a lot. Let's run backwards here on the shows and look at this first flyer. It's Forward, Crude, Warhead, Think Again, 2012 at Earthdom in Tokyo. We've got another one, a mega show at Shinjuku Loft with Blowback, Systematic Death, Warhead, Forward, Tetsuare. Again, his work is like so funny and cartoony. I love it. You know, go ahead now and get your tickets at Base, Boy, Nat Records. And then the oldest and probably most interesting of all of these, and this one is, these are printed, the classic like Japanese, like A5, A4, they're kind of like smaller than 8.5 by 11 paper size, on white paper, tissue thin. Like, what is up with like this like thin Japanese paper? Like, where does it come from? But this one is like actually on like a sort of like greenish blue paper, and it is for a show that brought us into the 21st century at Anti-Knock. It is December 31st, 1999. Welcome to 2000 with Judgment, Advance, Forward, Tetsure, Final Bombs, Extinct Government, Liberate, one of my favorite bands ever. Really, really underrated Japanese hardcore punk group with the ex-singer of Acid. They're like maybe my favorite Japanese punk vocalist. Anyways, just cool ass Burning Spirits, artwork from Naka. What do you want? Hopefully what you want are Burning Spirits flyers, because I got them. And I don't have enough wall space to put them up in my apartment anymore. So I'm passing them on to you. My loss is your gain. I almost forgot. I had to go back and film this later and like add it in. But when we were talking about Burning Spirits stuff, I forgot to show this shirt. We're talking about Naka's fantastic artwork as the Burning Spirits resident artist. Here is a Burning Spirits 1998 tour shirt with Forward and Tetsure. I don't know if this is unworn or not. It's very crisp. It feels like it could be unworn. If it has been worn, it's been washed like once or twice. It is a size medium. There will be a description with the exact measurements on it. Back artwork, very sick. Screaming strings with, again, these like hilarious cartoonish Naka characters and the full tour itinerary between Forward and Tetsure back in 1998, which feels like yesterday and pains me to realize it was almost 30 years ago now. Hey, speaking of Burning Spirits, when you think Burning Spirits, what bands do you think of aside from Tetsure? Maybe Deathside? I certainly do. And if you like Deathside records, I've got a few that have been on the sell before, but it's been a while since I've had any Deathside records, so I'm glad to bring back two of their seminal EPs, Satisfy the Instinct and the Will Never Die. I always wonder, is it The Will Never Die or The Will Never Die? It's a mystery. That's not all. I've also got their first LP, a nice copy of Wasted Dream. These are all, I would say, VG Plus copies. I've play tested all three. They sound great. Every Japanese hardcore punk collection needs Deathside records, and that's no exception. But we're not done. We're not done with Deathside original releases because, when I was first getting into this band back in the day, for some reason, the White Whale was not the original EPs or LPs, but everyone wanted this particular bootleg, this vinyl bootleg of the CD-only release of the Deathside Chaos UK split on Selfish Records, which for some reason never had an official vinyl repress until just a couple of years ago, finally on Break the Record, I think is the label that did it. But never in my life have I seen in person an original copy of the Selfish CD version until now. The Deathside Chaos UK split, quite rare on CD. I don't usually sell CDs, but I make exceptions here and there. I showed the Chaos Channel CD earlier, but I could not pass up the chance to pick up a copy of Deathside Chaos UK. Two things I love on this. For one, I love the later Selfish logo. It's not as good as like the Military Leaders ones, but just it's I don't know. It's like something of a time. It's like very, very, very 90s. And then just that Drunk Again. I used to laugh so hard about that when I was a teenager. Like, what the fucking Drunk Again? Actually, Chaos UK gets the short end of the stick on this release. I will say, if you like 90s Chaos UK, I do, and this is like some of their best. Also, I like maybe my favorite Deathside stuff too. I love this comp or this split so much. But You know, for some reason, Chaos UK doesn't get credits on the inside of this. There's no lyrics. There's no like member credits. It's like it's all Death Side, and then you know the Chaos UK tracks are kind of just like tacked on. Kind of weird, but you know, whatever. Let's do one more cassette. A couple drops ago, I offered up some of the Gloom demos, and also the Life demo from 1990. But I still have the Life demo. The Gloom demos have long sold. But here's something that's kind of in that vein, from 1999, self-released Frampted CDC demo. Never seen one of these in person before. Very cool, crushing 4-song demo from Osaka's crust heavyweights. I would say near mint condition, looks hardly played. It's on a Maxell cassette, 10-minute cassette. Basically, it's an EP. It does show up on their later singles compilation, but as like a standalone EP, has never been released in any other format. Very, very tough to find demos from this era of Japanese crust and hardcore. Just cool shit. Okay, trying to keep things moving, but a very, very short story. I started doing Plastic Scandal kind of like by chance, traveling Japan in 2024, and I was at the Nagoya branch of Disc Union, and just like in my Instagram stories, took a picture of all the insane punk vinyl that was on the wall there. One of the most insane things I've ever seen in my life was they had a copy of Dead Section 3, a record that a lot of people didn't even know actually existed until like the last 15 or so years, by the group Ika Shinju. Ika Shinju always kind of ran under the radar, but now I think it's kind of like being reappraised, and like honestly, they're top tier. They released 4 EPs, and every single one of them is god tier. Just fantastic Japanese hardcore that doesn't really sound like any other Japanese hardcore band. Manic, blazing, fast, really, really well produced records on their own, well, I guess their own label, Premium Records, which I don't think ever released anything else. Maybe there is one other premium release that's not Ika Shinju, but point being, someone saw this Instagram story and like DM'd me and was like, this was a $3,500 record at Disc Union, and painfully rare. And someone hit me up and offered me $4,000 to buy it for them and ship it to them from Japan. So basically like a $500 finder's fee on this record. And that's when the light bulb went off over my head. And I realized I should just max out all of my credit cards, buying as much as I can while I'm over there, and bringing it back to the US and reselling it to try to pay for my trip. And I did, and I continue to do it, and it's turned into a pretty cool project where I've made a lot of friends and met a lot of cool people and got to handle a lot of cool records that I otherwise wouldn't. And throughout the process, I started with selling Dead Section 3, and since then I've had Slow Down, and I've had the original Dead Section, but I've never been able to get a copy of the 4th Ika Shinju record until now. Finally, and honestly, man, like songwriting-wise, this could be the best of the 4. Overall, I think that Slow Down is my favorite, but this is similarly just manic, crazy, fantastic songwriting, but the production is a bit muddy on it. It doesn't hit. It's the only one of the Ika Shinju records I feel like doesn't sound all that great. Usually when records are remastered and repressed, I kind of thumb my nose at them, like the recent Lip Cream reissues. I have the originals, so I'm not going to buy them just to have like some extra inserts or, you know, hear a remastered version. I'd rather hear it the way it originally sounded. But this is an exception. Please God, I hope the master tapes exist of this, and someone at some point will pony up and do a proper remaster, because this is maybe not just the best Ika Shinju record in terms of songwriting, but like one of the best Japanese hardcore records of all time. Fantastic shit. Just doesn't quite sound as good as it should, but it's rare as piss just the same. Piss isn't rare. It comes out of my body several times a day. So rarer than piss, much rarer than piss. Moving on to something that is Also, Rarer Than Piss is a record that I have to credit my friend Burkhard, the guy who does the fantastic Flex discographies, and has kind of maybe has the most comprehensive collection of Japanese punk and hardcore in the world. Turned me on to this 8-inch about a year ago, something I'd never heard of before. A band called Loudmouth, spelled M-A-U-T-H, or Loudma for short. They only released this one 8-inch flexi in 1989. They're an Osaka band, all female, punk rock, catchy, very infectious. It's not blazing, distorted, loud. It's just a fucking charming record. I don't know what it is. It's great. It's great. You fall in love with it instantly. The first time I heard it, I was like, I gotta have this record. Gotta have it. Very, very, very hard to find though. Now, if you Discogs it, you'll notice that there's been like a string of copies sold that claim to be near mint, and all of them for a very rare record. Like they start off like 5 years ago, one sold for like $20, and then $30 and $40 and $50. They sell these like increments. I don't know. I think something is kind of fishy with these sales. I don't know if they're real or not. It's wholly possible that someone found stock copies of it and just didn't know how rare it really was and listed them on Discogs for like a fraction of what they're actually worth. It's not going to be the case with this one because I don't have a personal copy of it. I would really just assume keep this one, but I've got some big expenses and some traveling coming up, and you know I have to price it according to its actual rarity. But I'm also not going to be crying if no one bites on it because it's a sick record. VG Plus is probably how I would rate it. A little bit of wear around the cover, but no real surface noise, marks, or scuffage on the flexi itself. Sounds great. Very, very cool record. If nothing else, YouTube it. I promise you are going to like it. I got a couple more flyers. I don't know if there are fans of Automod out there. Sort of a long-running, very prolific Japanese goth industrial group. And this is a flyer from 1985, full color. Again, it's that A5 or A4 style. It's also a double-sided flyer that has an advertisement for their first full-length album, second 12-inch, first full-length. Interesting, very cult band. They're not every studded and mohawked punk's cup of tea, but they're a cool band, and the flyer was something that just kind of came my way. I thought I would pick up and offer up to anyone who was interested here in the States. Another cool flyer is this for a series of like an outdoor punk fest called Lost Generation Act 1 Punks, plural, New Wave in Yokohama street gig, 4 days at 7th Avenue. Who can identify this band? Sound off in the comments. Do you know? I think I know. But you've got 4 days of shows here, starting off with a pretty cool, is it Zoa or ZOA? I've never really known. Another sort of like band that you could sort of say is like in league with Automod, is like a goth industrial group, sort of. But then, you have a night with Star Club, the godfathers of Japanese punk rock in a lot of ways. Then the highlight, of course, is Wednesday the 10th. You've got Ghoul, Lip Cream, Gas Stunk, and then Hard Punk Night on the 11th with Anti and Janky. Just a cool little flyer of an interesting street fest that happened in Yokohama that is now lost to time. But anytime I see a cool flyer like this, I have to pick it up, enjoy it for a while. But like I said, I've run out of space on my walls, and I don't like... A lot of people are into buying paper now. I don't buy paper unless I plan on displaying it. I think it's just kind of silly to file it away and let it collect dust in a folder somewhere. But that's me. A lot of other people I know have their own personal archives of that kind of stuff and pick up whatever they can get their hands on. And if that's for you, then, you know, pick up that flyer. Okay, we're finally in the home stretch now. Just a few more items to talk about. Let's talk about Masami here for a second. The dearly departed singer of Ghoul, the one-handed maniac who was very prolific in the Japanese hardcore scene and clearly made a huge impact. And back in 2016, this sort of like zine book project came out called Peckinpah. And I honestly, I don't know much about, like, were there other issues of Peckinpah? Was this a thing, like a periodical that existed for a while and then did this special issue? I don't know. I've never seen another issue of Peckinpah, but this thing is mind-blowing. Usually when I have a magazine or a zine, I have to sort of like cherry pick the most like punk cool stuff and tell you about that, and not mention like whatever like indie rock or like corporate college rock is also contained in the magazine. But here, I don't know where to begin. There's so much cool stuff in this magazine. For instance, it starts off really strong with full color photos of Ghoul and Masami back in the day. A roundtable discussion and remembrance from members of the Trash, Ghoul, Forward, etc., just the old heads sitting around talking about their friend Masami. Systematic Death interview, Tetsuare interview, more from the guys in Forward. A chat with Jaja from Lip Cream, where he's talking about his kind of like solo acoustic stuff that he does around Japan these days. More full color Ghoul photos. I mentioned SOB's Kazuhiro before. You have a retrospective of his artwork that kind of just like is peppered throughout the magazine. A raw punk roundtable featuring guys from Last Survivors and Schizophrenia talking about what is raw punk, and breaking down like what they consider important foundational raw punk records. But also a pogo punk roundtable where they also break down what they consider to be the important records. And notice both sides claim the Bristles EP. Rightly so. I thought that was funny. More photos. Nice shot of Krudos there. Interview with Zionos. History of cult band Manbiki Chocolate. And maybe my favorite of all, an interview with Mr. Minagishi from the best record store on the planet, Flower Records. If you know, you know. If you're ever in Tokyo, you have to get off at the Nakano stop and hit up Flower. Dedicate a whole day to it. Dedicate 2 days to it. Give him your want list the first day. Come back the second day, and he will dig up some records for you. I love Flower Records. But anyways, that's not all. It just keeps going. This thing is really fucking nuts, and it's a killer snapshot of the scene at a time. It is sort of like crossroads here in the 2010s, where the old heads are still around and still playing and looking back and forward at the same time. Looking forward. You see what I did there? Forward. Anyways, this thing is so cool. I spent more time talking about it than I should, but my God, good stuff here. But anyways, the point was that we were talking about Masami, and maybe you know that ever since he passed away in the early 90s, every year, starting in 1992, there have been this like Masami tribute gig shows that it's like all the friends get together and they do a gig, and it's a great way to see, like, it's like stepping back in time. I got to go to the Masami gig back in 2024 and see bands that like I never thought I'd have the chance to see. And it began in 1992 with 5 days worth of gigs featuring every single band you could think of, and from Poison Arts, Gas Stunk, Deathside, Gizm, Gauze, Final Bombs, Deadless Muss. Every band played. And I had a flyer for the original 5 shows a few months ago, and it sold immediately. But I knew that there was a shirt that they sold at these gigs as well, because I've seen photos of like the old heads wearing it, and never thought I'd have the chance to pick one up. And thankfully one popped up, and I snatched it immediately for resale here. from 1992. This is like, it's got to be new old stock. It doesn't have a tag. I would say it's a medium probably, but it features the flyer art on the front and another image with a sort of like, I guess like a cartoon Masami on the back. This is a piece of history, a very, very, very cool t-shirt. Unfortunately, maybe I could fit in. I don't know. I like my t-shirts to run big, and I just cannot quite get into this one. But even if I could, I probably wouldn't wear it. I'd prefer to collect it, but I, again, got bills to pay and traveling to do, so I'm moving it on to a loving home. But what's crazy is that's not even the coolest shirt that I have. Check this out. If you can fit in it, I don't recommend you wear it just because why screw it up? It's thin, but it's not like that sort of like tissue thin that just like feels like it's going to fall apart in your hands. But still, it's getting there. From way back in 1988, an original Systematic Death Backdrop Japan Tour shirt. This is a tour they did with SOB back in '88. In fact, we were talking about Kazuhiro earlier. That's a Kazuhiro design here. In fact, I'll bring up this Peckinpah magazine again because they actually show a reproduction of the original flyer for the tour. Backdrop Japan Tour, SOB and Systematic Death, Nightmare, Gudon, Raise Cane. My God, wish I had a time machine. But this is, as you can see, it doesn't have much of a tag left or a, I don't know. I would say it's like probably a small or a medium. As you can see, like the design is clear like a hand silt screen. Slight, like there's like not perfectly screened. It's not like a professional production job. The image is even just like kind of like slightly off center. It's very punk, very DIY, very cool. Wish I could keep it, but got to move it on to a loving home, and that home could be yours. Okay, just a couple more items to show you. The long-running Japanese subcultural magazine Doll folded back in, I think like 2007, and shortly afterwards, HG Fact stepped up to kind of like produce what I think was intended to be a replacement for Doll, not as a whole, but just to like do sweeping contemporary punk coverage with slick, glossy production in a zine that they called Adverse. And like many HG Fact releases, the graphic design here is, I think, is meant to make you blind. It's pretty crazy looking, but very cool. And this is issue number 2. And right out of the gate, you're in the right magazine when you have a judgment review of their shows at Chaos and Teos. I was there. Were you there? Sign off in the comments. A lot of really cool stuff in here. You have a comprehensive history of the recording of Paint Box's divisive, but maybe now classic Trip Trance Traveling album. An interview with Swedish greats Avskum. A look at Extreme Noise Terror. A Portland scene report with a photo of my friend Billy's old record store, Brickwall Records. This makes me wistful and nostalgic. I loved Brickwall quite a lot. Wish I could go back. This issue, unfortunately, you'll see the cover has separated from the rest of the magazine. Hey, speaking of Naka, here's another cool Burning Spirits Chelsea gig, Blowback, World Burns to Death, Slaying, Origin of M. Nice little snapshot of a time and place. I have a second issue too. That is the second issue, number 2, and this is issue number 3. Hey, take a guess. If issue number 2 had Judgment's shows at Chaos and Teos, and issue number 3 came out about a year later, what would it include? Well, of course, a review of Bastard's seminal appearance, legendary appearance at Chaos and Teos. Again, God bless, take me back, please. Photos by our friend Jack the Barfield, and interview with Todd Burdett. At this time, like the Portland Japanese connection was like so strong, and like it seemed like the tragedy guys had like established such a tragedy, and Timmy Hefner, of course. Like, it had just connected the American scene and the Japanese scene so intimately at that point. Man, we didn't know how good we had it, did we? There's also a cool advert in here for Kaibo Shitsu, which is Crow from Crow's sort of like 80K inspired side project band. An interview with a band that I really like that isn't for everybody. Final Bombs, kind of inspired by a maligned era of Discharge, but I like Final Bombs more than that era of Discharge, I'll say. And then I was really surprised by this. It's a Shia from Death Side and Forward's movie recommendations for some reason. It turns out he's like quite the cinephile. Some really obscure choices here. If you know me, you know that I'm quite a deep movie head as well. And so I was really surprised to see some of his picks here. Pretty interesting stuff. Adverse scene, short-lived, did not go the distance, unfortunately. But you can pick up a couple cool editions here. They're long gone. One of them slightly damaged, but just as readable. Now, I mentioned how Adverse was kind of meant to fill the gap in punk coverage that was created when Doll magazine folded. There are certain issues of Doll magazine that people are always on the lookout for, but I don't think any of them as much as the number 20, February 1984 issue. Why? The cover star, of course, Cal from Discharge, and this iconic photo that we've seen a bunch of times in black and white, but here in color. A fantastic issue. This one is in pretty strong condition. It's actually like in better shape than my personal copy. I love like the VAP Records Punk's Not Dead 1984 advertisement on the back. You also have a conversation with Psychic TV, one of my favorite bands of all time. Oh, look at this beautiful photo of Randy Ocheida. A whole like history of like the Punk's Not Dead 1984 series from VAP. Just, I mean, what do you want? Another like very sick Discharge photo right here. I mean, a cool piece of history. One of these things that's like, if you're lucky, you might find at Disc Union on your Japanese vacation, but chances are you're not ever going to find it here in the States, unless, of course, you buy from PLSATIC Scandal, the finest purveyors of Japanese punk and hardcore here in the good old US of A. Here's a Gizm live show review and a very threatening photo of Sakevi. Look at that. Anyways, suitable for framing, except then you won't be able to read it. But it's in Japanese, so you probably won't be able to read it anyways. Hey, speaking of Punk's Not Dead 1984, and speaking of Discharge, you know what people email me constantly about? This. Easily the most coveted of the VAP press, the VAP Japanese presses of seminal UK 82 hardcore punk records. Finding a copy of Why with the I've had a few beers now, with the OV strip intact and the liner notes insert as well. This is a easy near mint VG Plus copy of the hardest to find of this particular series of sick-ass Japanese punk represses. What more do you want? You got to collect them all. While I'm at it, I should let you know, these are from the previous update, but I still have available both Grave New World and Price of Silence complete copies with OB and liner notes. Hit me up. You know you need them. With that Japanese press, Discharge Why, we are in a very, very short section, just 3 records long, of non-Japanese punk records that are going to be on the next update. As I mentioned at the top of the video, sometimes I add things that are maybe not necessarily punk, but that's not the case with this. I just found a cheap copy of a classic that every record collection needs to own, at least every punk record collection needs. The first Appendix LP, one of just the absolute heavy hitter, top tier, best Finnish hardcore records. This is, of course, the Rockorama pressing, which I will say, like, I mean, Of course, we want the finished originals, but one of the benefits of having the Rockorama press is that you would get that sick insert that would have band photos and this like tile list of other Rockorama releases, and of course the full fold out extra large band photo. I mean, come on. Now I have one non-punk record that's coming to this next update. Don't touch that dial because we still have one more big record coming here in a second. But if you're like me and you also appreciate weird underground 70s psychedelia, you might know this Danish heavy hitter, the first Fyrkabin LP, which is from 1970. This is stoned out commune house living room jams. Sounds like it was recorded on a 4-track with a single microphone. This is like just very beautiful, earthy, unusual, super hard to find Danish, Scandinavian psychedelia on the Spectator imprint, a legendary Danish psych label. I know you're here for Japanese punk, so I'm not going to go on too much about this one right now. And the thing that kind of pains me on this sale is, like, I always like imagine like I would do like Japanese punk, but then also like krautrock and psychedelia and 70s hard rock and all the other stuff that I'm into. It doesn't really sell, so I don't pick it up that often. But I happened upon an affordable copy of this one. I already have one for myself, so I'm going to pass it along. But this is just like a record, like no matter where you are, you don't see it hardly ever. Beautiful album. But now it's time to put the white gloves back on. Nice. All right, so I hope you're sitting down because we have yet another one of the most elusive Japanese hardcore punk releases of all time. Another Flexi. That's right. It's an original Execute A to Z Flexi. This is the, they call it Snake Eyes sleeve. There are two variations, one with a sort of English script font and one with this, sort of handwritten version. As you know, there's a lot of different cover variations of this particular record. I would say the sleeve is near mint, insane condition for its age, and so is the vinyl, most importantly. Sounds huge, loud. Here's a question for anyone out there in the comments that might have an answer. Every copy of the Execute Flexi has this sort of like weird rubbed out smiley face shape here. And then also like underneath the side, a little bit more of this like strange scuffing thing. It's on both sides. I don't know what that is. I've never seen that on a record before. It's not a defect. It's on every single copy I've seen of it. But I mean, what do you want? It's one of the absolutely most mind-bendingly rare Japanese hardcore singles of all time. I know what you would want. You would want a lyric insert, wouldn't you? Well, that particular version never came with the lyric insert, so it is complete technically. But the seller was nice enough to include, actually not one, but two copies of a perfect reproduction of the lyric insert and the other Snake Eyes sleeve with the British script. There's actually two copies of here in both, but they're not original. I wouldn't fool you like that. They're reproductions, but this is the original sleeve for Execute A to Z. I mean, come on. It's a perfect record. Part of why I do this sale, again, I'll say it, is I can't afford an Execute Flexi. I can't afford a Gas No More Hiroshima. One of these days when I'm rich and famous or win the lottery or buy the right cryptocurrency or some shit, become a famous YouTuber, then maybe I can afford records like that, but not now. So my solution is to buy and flip. Buy records, enjoy them for a little bit, love them, and then move them on to their forever homes. Anyways, we did it. That's the whole update, 59 items. How long is this video? I can't wait to edit it and find out. I'm guessing 7 or 8 hours long. That's certainly how it felt. But anyways, just a recap. Check out the sell list, tinyurl.com/plastic scandal. Follow me on Instagram, at plastic scandal _. Remember, the update is going to be 7 p.m. Eastern Time, January 12th. This is probably going to be the last update until at least like spring, mid or late spring, maybe even early summer. Starting in February, I'm going traveling for at least 3 months, maybe even 6. I'll be out of pocket, so there won't be any more updates. So if you have your eye on something, pick it up, because it's not going to be. I mean, it's just not going to be. I have to shut down the sell. I can't sell records when I'm in another country. So even if something goes unsold, I'm not going to be able to do mail order for an undetermined amount of months. But anyways, thank you very much for sitting through this. If you did, you're a crazy person if you have. And also, with every order, I will include one of these nifty Plastic Scandal vinyl stickers. It's my ripoff of the famous Disc Union logo. My second favorite record store behind, of course, Flower Records. I just made these for the hell of it because I thought it was funny. Yeah, I'm not going to give like the like and subscribe to my channel, because if you go back and look at my other videos, this isn't a real YouTube channel. It's not something that I keep up or do all that often. Although I am kind of like trying to work on another channel that's like travel and art and culture focused. I've been shooting it for years. I don't know if I'm ever actually going to get around to uploading it or not, but maybe one of these days. But anyways, don't feel the need to like and subscribe or hit that button. It's not one of those kinds of channels. I just wanted to let you know what's coming up and to look at some cool shit. Okay, that's it. Have a good one. I don't have a cool tagline or anything, so fuck it. Cheers.